Today I'm going to talk about learning a foreign language in general. So here I want to say knowing a language saves life. Alright, in fact I have gathered the importance of knowing a language under some topics, under 9 important topics. The first one is to increase, you should know a foreign language, especially English, to increase your global understanding. What does it mean? First, let's talk about this one. As you know, today the world has become a global village, and the language of this village is English, you know. So, at the moment we buy and sell goods, we try to solve political problems, we try to ensure international security, and because of these relationships, understanding other cultures has become more important than ever. So, not speaking the other's language can lead to mistrust and misunderstandings between the nations, and sometimes even wars. Because a person who can speak other languages can be the bridge between the nations. So it is very important to know a language here. And if you speak the language of the other nation, you can contribute to international diplomacy, promotes the national security and world peace. In order not to be alone, here there's something, there's a saying by Gandhi, which I like: no culture can live if it attempts to be exclusive. Is it possible to be exclusive at the moment in this global village? No, it's not possible now. You have to live in this world, and you have to always have some kind of relationships with other nations. And in order to communicate with other nations, you have to speak the language of that nation. Don't forget, it is impossible to step into that culture without knowing the language. Okay? This is the first chapter. Alright, do you know this guy?
Yeah.
Who is it? Who is he? Nelson Mandela, yes, the legendary leader of South Africa. Do you know his life story? Do you have any information about his life story? What do you know about him?
Yeah, he goes to prison, I think.
Yes, he went to prison and he stayed there.
Then,
Do you know how long did he stay in the prison? He stayed in the prison for 27 years. Yes, he stayed in the prison. Of course, by the way, I did my thesis, what's that? My master thesis about him, about his life. My master thesis was Nelson Mandela's life as a post-colonial life. So I had a chance to dissect, to examine his life in detail, and I encountered very interesting details there. Because he stayed in the prison for 27 years, he had lots of time to think about different issues, and he also had some chance to think about the language matter, language issue, and he said something. I love that. You see, if you talk to a man in a language he understands, that goes to his head. If you talk to him in his language, that goes to his heart. Think about that. For example, think about a guy, an American guy or an English guy saying, Eyvallah. What do you think about him? First, your first feeling about him, what does it become? Do you have a negative or positive feeling about him? Positive. Why? Because he speaks your language. And what does that mean? Speaking your language, what does it mean? He respects your culture. He respects you. And most of the people, in fact, in this world, everybody wants to be respected. This is the first rule. And in fact, trying to learn a language means respecting to that culture. So you are accepted there. If you speak that language, you are accepted to that culture easily. Dear friends, like these concrete walls, in fact, there are lots of walls among people, but these walls are most of the time invisible. You cannot see them, and knowing a language is the best way to overcome these walls. If you know it's a kind of key for you to unlock the door. Okay? If you know the language, you can easily unlock the door and go into that culture, and you are accepted there easily. All right? So this is very, very important one. Okay, let's continue. Yeah, there's something here that's also important. Learning another language gives the learner the ability to step inside the mind and context of another culture. If you cannot communicate and understand the culture on its own terms, it is impossible for you to access to that culture. This part is very important. You have to understand the culture on its own terms. You understand? That's very, very important part. And knowing a language gives you that ability. All right? Yes, let's have a look at the second one. You should speak a language to improve employment potential. This one is Dr. Don Davidson, President of the American Councils on International Education. What he says is really very interesting. The English language alone is probably sufficient if all we need to do is buy our products abroad, if we need to buy foreign goods and service. Shortly, he says here, if you're a buyer, there is no problem. You don't have to speak the other languages. But if you're a seller, if you want to sell something to the world, to some countries, first of all, you have to, let's think about that. You have a company, all right? And in that company, you want to produce something, you want to manufacture something, and you want to sell this thing abroad. How can you produce that one? First of all, you should have detailed information about that country. And how can you have that detailed information? Of course, knowing language is very important here. You should know the language to get the detailed information so that you can produce the right product. For example, you produce something. Okay, let's say you have manufactured, you have produced the right product. How are you going to promote it? How are you going to sell it? Again, you will need language, all right? I'm not talking about English only. I'm talking knowing languages in general, right? For example, okay. And also I want to say something. Of course, business is not the only area of employment where you can use your language. What other areas there are? What other areas? For example, government agencies. If you want to work in a government agencies, you have to speak that language, right? And travel industry, engineering, communications, the field of education, international law. Are there law students here? All right, please learn it. Because maybe in 10 years' time there will be international law. There is international law now, and in order to be lawyer, international lawyer, you do have to speak English. You have no other chance. When you go to the department, please speak to Volkan Hoca. He will say, if you don't speak English, don't come in. Go ahead, he says. But he's really right. Okay, and shortly I can say, whatever your career goals, knowing a language certainly won't be bad for you. On the contrary, knowing a language will help you to get a better job. And knowing languages will open up employment, numerous, lots of employment opportunities to you, and you will be able to command a greater salary in the workplace. All right. Okay, let's have a look at the other one. Yeah, this is very interesting, isn't it? To increase native language ability. Do you have any idea about that? Your native language is Turkish, you know? And so what is the relation knowing a language, another knowing English and increase native language ability? Yes, I found this somewhere. You see, I wish everybody would speak Turkish well first. We always talk about this. Why can't we teach English to our students? This is our question we have been trying to solve for years. And I have one important answer to that, because they don't speak Turkish. Because they don't know Turkish. Unfortunately, most of the new generation don't speak Turkish, don't know Turkish, because you don't read books. In order to, anyway, if I come to this one, here he says something. This is Johann Wolfgang von Goethe. Those who know nothing of foreign languages knows nothing of their own. Certainly, absolutely true. If you don't know a foreign language, you don't know your own language. Really, for example, I learned Turkish grammar while I was learning English. Believe me. While I was learning English, I learned my Turkish grammar. I didn't know any grammar, and I learned while I was learning English. And about this one, I want to say something. Research showed that knowledge of other languages increases students' understanding of languages in general and enables students to use their native language more effectively. Yeah, research showed that. This is scientific fact. And if you speak another language different from your mother tongue, you have more vocabulary than the ones who speaks only one language. And you also have a better understanding of both languages, your mother tongue and your foreign language. Okay? And about that, there are lots of scientific research about the correlation, you know, correlation, parallel, correlation between learning a foreign language and getting better in mother tongue. Yeah, these are scientific research. All right, let's have a look at the fourth one. What's that? You should learn a foreign language to sharpen cognitive and life skills. What does sharpen mean? Cognitive means. Do you know it? About your brain. Okay? Your brain. Cognitive and life skills. You know, learning a language, what is that? It's a form of learning. Is that okay? Do you agree with me? It's the most important form of learning, in fact. You are learning something. So, and it involves a variety of different types of learning skills. For example, studying a foreign language can enhance one's ability to learn and function in several other areas. Children who have, this is very interesting, this is the result of a research. Children who have studied a language at elementary level score higher on tests in reading, language arts, and math. People who have learned foreign languages show greater cognitive development, brain development, in areas such as mental flexibility, creativity, higher order thinking skills such as problem solving, conceptualizing, and reasoning. And learning a language gives you these abilities. Because why? I also want to say this one. In addition to cognitive benefits, the study of foreign languages also teaches some important life skills. Because language learners learn to deal with unfamiliar situations and ideas. They are much better to adapt and cope in fast-changing worlds. So, this encounter also gives you this encounter with different ideas and different words and vocabulary and everything gives you important life skills to adapt life. Okay? I'm trying to, of course, it's quite a complicated thing. I'm trying to put it in simple language. I'm having some difficulty. All right. Yes, he also says something about that. We have strong evidence today that studying a foreign language has a ripple effect, increasing effect, helping to improve student performance in other subjects. Yes, if you know, in Turkey we have a opposite idea. If you study math, you cannot learn English or you cannot learn a foreign language. No, this is not correct. If you can learn foreign languages, you can do maths, you can do philosophy, you can do anything, believe me. Because it sharpens your cognitive abilities. Okay? Is that okay? Are you with me? You look very tired after the exam. I know this is really difficult. But I'm trying to be simple. Yes, what is that? The fifth one. To appreciate international literature, music, and film. Dear friends, you should read a book in its original language in order to enjoy the book. Because, do you know why? Yes? Okay.
Sanat ruhumu açıktır. Bilim çevirmesiyle olabilecek bir şey değil. Sanatın sevdalı.
Yes, and also we're going to talk about translation. In fact, when you translate a novel or a poem into another language, it loses some things. It loses the style, it loses some meaning, it loses uniqueness. Yes, lady?
For example, there is a word in Turkish called yakamos.
Mm-hmm.
And there is no such word in English.
Yes, of course.
So how can we translate the poem which includes the word yakamos or a song?
It's nearly impossible.
May I also add something? There is also, I think, gönül, right? Gönül,
Yes.
for example, in English. There is
Yeah, of course, yes. There are so many culturally loaded words. These are culturally loaded words. You cannot translate them because they are the products of that culture. They belong to that culture, and you cannot translate them. You cannot give the same meaning. All right. Yar, for example, yar. In Turkish, yar. Lover, yes. In English, you have lover, but it's very, it's not so impressive.
Connotation.
Yeah. Okay. So, especially, for example, it is really, really difficult. I can say nearly impossible to translate poems. Did you know that? Do you know Nazım Hikmet?
Yes.
Nazım Hikmet learned Russian just in order to enjoy Russian classics. Did you know that one? He learned Russian just to enjoy Russian classics, in order to read Russian classics in its own and in its original language. He learned Russian. Yes. As you said, wordplays, metaphors, overtones, implications, cultural references, culturally loaded words, and formulations unique to the original language, and unfortunately, these often get lost in translation. When you translate, you get these kind of things get lost. So when you read a translated book, in fact, you don't read the original, but you read the recreated one. I was in a seminar years ago. There was a very famous translator, Cevat Çapan. Do you know him? Anyway, he's a very, very famous translator, and he said, every translation is a kind of recreation. The translator recreates the book. So when you read the translation of the book, you don't read the original one. Okay, so you should learn foreign language to appreciate international literature. Okay? Of course, this is very practical reason. You should, especially if we turn back to that one, you should learn, especially English, to improve your chances of entering into college or graduate school. Today, dear friends, if you want to go abroad, if you want to study abroad, the first barrier you are going to encounter is language barrier. Because all of them, in fact, all of the graduate schools or undergraduate schools, universities, colleges abroad wants you to speak English because they're going to, it's the medium of instruction. They're going to teach in English. So how can you understand? It is the prerequisite. You know prerequisite? You have to, the first rule. If you don't speak English, if you don't have a document that shows that you speak English, you cannot even dream to go abroad to study. Okay? So if you want to improve your chances of entry into college or graduate school, you do have to again learn a foreign language, learn English, or if you want to go to Germany, you have to learn German. Let's continue. Yeah, this is a very interesting one. You should learn a foreign language to make travel more feasible and enjoyable. I'm sure in your English classes, maybe you have studied the difference between a tourist and a traveler. Do you know the difference between a tourist and a traveler? What is that? A tourist is a tourist, you know. He just goes there, spends money, and comes back. But a traveler tries to penetrate, go into the cultural climate of that society. He wants to learn the local food. He wants to be part of that culture. And if you're a traveler, believe me, you can see the best places. You can eat the best food there. But in order to be a traveler, again, you have to, you remember we said before, to step into that culture, you have to speak that language. It is the key. Alright, so if you want to make your travel more feasible and enjoyable, you again have to learn a foreign language. Yeah, this is another one. In order to increase understanding of oneself and one's own culture, you should also speak another language. This one is really good. This is she's an American anthropologist, Margaret Mead. As a traveler who has once been from home, is wiser than he who has never left his own doorstep, so a knowledge of one other culture should sharpen our ability to scrutinize more steadily, to appreciate more lovingly our own. Did you understand this one? This is a little bit difficult. It's a kind of looking your culture from a different angle. If you don't have a tool in your hand to compare some things, you cannot understand the value of that thing. You should have something in your hand to compare the things in order to understand the value of that thing, right? So knowing a language gives you that tool. So you will have completely different point of view, completely different angles, so that you will be able to, if you speak another language different from your mother tongue, you will have that chance to look at your own culture from different angles. Okay? So you will be a different person, believe me. Okay. The last one. To make lifelong friends. The most important trip you may take in life is meeting people halfway. Yes, knowing other languages effectively, of course, increases the number of people you can speak, you can communicate, so that you can choose more proper friends from lots of people, all right? So that if you speak another language, for example, now you only speak Turkish, you can communicate with, let's say, 70 million people. But if you speak English, you can communicate with at least 2 billion people, 2 billion people maybe. And the chances of finding your the person you are looking for in 2 billion and in 70 million. You see there is a great difference. Okay? So in order to find great friends, you should learn another language. All right. Yes, did you know this one? Also, this is reality. Mehmet II or Mehmet Conqueror, yes, the Conqueror, spoke 8 languages, including Turkish, Greek, Hebrew, Arabic, Persian, French, Latin, and Serbian. And I say, if he hadn't been able to speak 8 languages, he wouldn't have been Mehmet the Conqueror. Believe me. You understand? This is part 3. Past and what? Unreal things. When you talk about past unreal things, we use this one, huh?
They know the second hocam.
Really? They haven't learned that yet. Okay. All right. Let's continue. Okay, I'm going to, I know this is, as I told you, really thank you. I really appreciate that. This is Friday, you are all tired. I'm not going to make it very long. And I'm going to finish my presentation with a joke. Speaking another language saves life. This is a joke, I really like it. A little mouse meets a cat in the street. And of course, when cat sees this little mouse, it starts to chase it. The mouse is running in front of the cat, and then one of older mouse sees them, sees the situation, and suddenly the older mouse says or barks, how? And of course, the cat really gets scared, and it runs away, and then the little mouse comes near to older mouse, and older mouse says, "You see, boy, it always pays to know a second language. Speaking another language saves life." All right. Yes, this is another one. All right. Thank you very much for your patience.